What is going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. We've got some crazy upcoming class tuning that is happening. I'll get to that news article in just a second. I just wanted to show some Ellie stuff. I'm continuing to play with the Elemental build with Frost Shock in it, and I'm going to do a follow-up video on the Elemental build probably tomorrow, I would think. But we were just blasting some keys on Ellie, and again, this is the build that has Ice Fury and Electrified Shocks instead of Stormkeeper. So stay tuned for more Ellie videos on this build. I've just been absolutely loving it and having a good time blasting in keys on it. Now let's get to these upcoming class tuning changes. This is coming next week, so it should be on the next Tuesday reset, I believe. Actually, I guess that's in like 3 days, right? So not even next week, I guess, is sort of a weird way to say that. It's happening in 3 days, which is really, really cool. There are some massive changes happening in this little just mini patch in between. This always seems to be when they do this stuff. It's like you're expecting these changes to happen on like the bigger patch days, but then, you know, it's always the little ones that are crazy. So we continue to closely monitor data on class performance as well as player feedback. We've developed the following adjustments to classes that are over and underperforming in group content and PvP. These changes will go into effect with the scheduled weekly maintenance in each region. Okay, so Bone Shield now grants armor based on 80% of your strength instead of 70. So just a small buff to blood there. A little bit more armor. Kind of nice, I guess, for them not getting one shot by mobs, but not really a huge deal. Frost damage up by 4%. Pretty good. You know what's interesting about this is that I feel like Frost DKs can actually be really, really good, and I'm going to talk about this when I get to Feral, but sometimes it's hard to like evaluate how good a spec is because you don't ever see it that much. Look at Frost DK. Look at their representation here. Like in terms of the difference between blood DKs and then unholy DKs and Frost. Obviously, unholy and Frost are closer together, but there are like just no Frost DKs playing the game. And the same can be said for Feral Druid. There's basically no Feral Druids playing the game. So it's like these buffs come in, and you're like, damn, that's pretty good. But most people would be like, it doesn't matter. Like 4% on Frost, who cares? It might actually be really, really good for Frost. It's just that nobody like plays it, so you're never going to know if it's very good or not because you just don't see it that often. I haven't seen a Frost DK in one of my keys in like months. So I think this is quite good. I'm not sure how good Frost necessarily is. We can look really, really quickly here. Go to sub creation. Oh, I meant to type in sub creation. There we go. So if you look at Mythic Plus and we go to sub, or we go to Frost, Frost is way down here in C tier apparently. No, that's Monk. It's on D tier. Love that. But it's doing a plus 27 keys, plus 26 keys. There's been a plus 29 key done by a Frost DK. So, like, sometimes you have to take these things in stride, right? It's like, this is a good little buff. Do they need this buff? Probably. But it's hard to tell how good it is because nobody plays them. Anyway, Unholy. All damage dealt by you and your pets increased by 4% as well. Once again, we saw Unholy DK very underrepresented. So maybe this will bring more people up to wanting to play Unholy DK. That'd be kind of cool. Let's move on to Feral Druid. This is a pretty crazy buff, like across the board. You got Rip damage up by 10%, Rake periodic damage up by 5%, Primal Wrath up by 10%. That's your AoE slash that applies Rip to all the enemies that it hits. Feral Frenzy, which is the tier set, like, I mean, that's your single target 5-point combo generator, but it also is the current tier set bonus is centered around Feral Frenzy. So this is a really good buff, I would say, because Feral Frenzy is sort of the core part of your build right now. So again, you've got single target damage, and then AoE damage. And the Primal Wrath upfront hit is going up by 10%, and then every rip that you put on all the enemies is going up by 10%. So there's an AoE and single target buff. Feral Frenzy is a single target buff. Lunar Inspiration is letting you cast Moonfire in cat form. I don't know that anybody actually takes that talent, so it still feels like a dead talent to me. Rampant Ferocity is the ferocious bite splashing to nearby enemies. That is a huge buff. People were not taking Rampant Ferocity, and even in Mythic Plus, they weren't taking it at all right now because there's just better, I guess there's just better talents to be taking. But I would have thought that it was something that you could take, but it just looks like that's not the case. So look at like the top build here, for example, for Feral. they're not taking Rampant Ferocity at all. So maybe now, with the 25% buff to it, they will start taking Rampant Ferocity again. Who knows? Maybe not. We'll have to see. Restoration Druid, getting another buff. I feel like they do not need a buff at all, but every single one of their spells basically got a mana cost reduction, which is really, really nice. I don't think they need this. I don't understand why they're getting this. They already have massive, massive ability to get their mana back. Like, Resto Druid has an incredible, like, you could just go down here and you could get either the Boomkin form or you could go Cat form. And your Wrath and Starfire and Star Surge give you mana back. Cat form abilities all give you mana back with Master Shapeshifter. So, plus you have Innervate over here. I just don't really understand. This doesn't make sense to me at all. Like, Resto Shaman, I feel like really needs a buff to their mana regen in some way. So, I don't know. I feel like somebody missed the mark here in terms of Resto Shaman, but the Resto Druids are getting another buff. So, yay for them. Survival Hunter, all damage going up by 4%. Once again, I just want to show this really quickly that sometimes it's hard to understand if that's good or not because you don't see a lot of Survival Hunters. Sorry, that's the wrong one. But, like, look at that. They're doing plus 27s, plus 25, plus 20, plus 26, plus 27. So they're not even as good as the Frost DKs. There was a plus 29 key for Frost DKs, right? So maybe they do need a buff. I don't know. I just feel like they're probably criminally underrepresented, right? Look at this. Where's Hunter? Look at this. Look at Survival Hunters. You got BM Hunters are way up here, 333,000 of them. And there's like 14,000 Survival Hunters. So I think this is great. I think Survival Hunter does a lot of damage. I actually just need to start doing more keys on my Survival Hunter. I just don't have time. But anyway, I think this is a good buff. It's great. But my suspicion is that Survival Hunter is actually secretly very good. We just don't know because nobody plays it. Holy Paladin getting some DPS buffs. These are really missing the mark, in my opinion. Shield of the Righteous is great, and Consecration damage is great. That's your top AoE damage in Mythic Plus, generally speaking, is Consecration. But, I don't know, man. Like, my Resto Shaman can just open up on a pack with, like, a Healing Rain and a Flame Shock and, like, a Stormkeeper Chain Lightning, a couple of those. And I will sustain 100k DPS as a Resto Shaman on a big AoE pack. Like, easily. I will sustain 100k DPS. Sometimes I'll peak at like 150, 160k DPS, and then it'll slowly go back down. But I will sustain 100k. Getting above like 50k DPS as a Holy Paladin right now is like a nightmare. And I feel like these changes are just not it. Like, the other spells and abilities need to be buffed, I think. Even things like Crusader Strike needs to like hit in an AoE cone or something around you, not just in not just one target. I just don't understand. Their damage is abysmal right now compared to my Monk and my Shaman. So I think they need a different kind of help rather than just getting more buffs to the damage that they're already doing, which is really low. It's like if you're buffing something that does 2 damage, now it's only doing like 3 damage. You know what I'm saying? But if you're buffing something that if you're buffing something that actually does substantial amounts of damage, then the buff is actually substantial. But if you're buffing something that does like very, very little damage, it doesn't have as big of an impact. So I'm not really sure about this. Retribution Paladin. This is a massive buff. This is so huge. Wake of Ashes, Truth's Wake, Seething Flames. This is the AoE components, right, of your Wake of Ashes. So if you're on Ret Paladin, down here you've got Seething Flames is the extra. When you go boom, 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 you send out all the different wakes. This is the original wake here. And then, of course, you have Truth's Wake. That's the burn over time. So every single portion of Wake of Ashes is getting buffed here. The upfront damage is 20%. Truth's Wake is the burn over time, 28%. Seething Flames is the extra 2 slashes that you do. That's 28%. Blade of Justice is your single target big blade that you hit people with. It also does AoE damage, actually, right? Because you take this talent up here. I forget where it is. It's one of them. Something here. Where your blade will hit AoE. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is, that's an AoE and a single target buff. Final Verdict is, of course, your single target spender. And it ends up over here. Final Verdict, so it has a lot of range to it. It also has a chance to reset Hammer of Wrath and let you cast it again. So this is an insane buff to AoE and single target. It's very, very good. I mean, you always take Wake of Ashes on a single target fight anyway. So this is all a single target buff, and it's an AoE buff as well, except for Final Verdict. So insane buffs to Ret Paladin. Like, really, really good. I'm not even sure why they needed these buffs. Like, I feel like in Mythic Plus, they're just slapping. So we'll just have to see how this goes. Holy Priest. Some other insane buffs. Holy Word Sanctify up by 25%. That's your big AoE Holy Word. That is massive. Heal, which is your strong single target, your slow single target heal, up by 25%. Flash Heal is your fast one. That's up by 15%. Chastise is your big Holy Word damaging ability, of course, up by 30%. Smite up by 30%. Shadow Word Pain up by 30%. I don't play with Shadow Word Pain on my Holy Priest, but the rest of this is an insane buff. Single target healing, AoE healing, and damage. Like, what more could you ask for? This is like everything. I think that Holy Priest right now, I think, is definitely behind Disc Priest in terms of the viability that they've got, right? If we just look at, let's say, Mythic Plus, Disc Priest and Mistweaver Monk are at the top, and you've got Holy Priest down in the C tier, right? Even if we go to a Mirdrasil and you look at the healers, Mistweaver, Disc Priest, Resto Shaman, and then they've got Holy Priest in F tier. I don't think that's actually a great representation because we have some amazing Holy Priests in our guild. Hop is like an insane Holy Priest in Raid. So, but just so you understand, kind of this is probably part of the decision making that Blizzard has right now because Holy Priest is so far behind Disc Priest that it needs a buff to help it in this way. Shadow Priest, this is huge. This is massive. This is such a big change here. Mind Blast up by 10%. Devouring Plague up by 10%. Shadowy Apparitions up by 20%. Not as relevant in this season because you're not really doing a Void Eruption build. You're not really indexing your talent tree into Shadowy Apparitions as much. But I suspect that next season, in Season 4, Shadow Priest is really going to benefit from the Apparition change. It's still a good change, but they're not as big a part of your damage right now. Here's the biggest one. Psychic Link now causes direct damage spells to inflict 30% of their damage. This is, again, going back to an old iteration of Shadow Priest. It used to be 30%. I think the original Psychic Link was 40%, right? And then it went down to 30, and then it went down to 15, and then it went up to 25, and now it's going back up to 30. So, like, Shadow Priest has been on this roller coaster of a journey with Psychic Link, and now it's back up to 30%, or it will be. Here's the hidden point here that you need to remember. Psychic Link damage is from all of your other single target damage. So not only is Psychic Link damage being buffed, but your single target damage is also being buffed, except Apparitions don't count. Mind Blast and Devouring Plague turn into Psychic Link damage. So you're kind of double dipping, right? You're getting single target damage, and then you're getting your Psychic Link funnel damage that's turning into more AoE damage. So it's a double dip here for Shadow Priest. That's why it's such a big deal in my mind. But it's very nice to see them giving some love to Shadow Priest. It's been a while. They've been in a tough spot for sure. Resto Shaman, let's go. All healing increased by 5%. That, first of all, is wild. That is really, really good. My healing right now feels fine, to be honest, but 5% more is fantastic. And then look at all the single target buffs. This is insane. Lava Burst, Flame Shock, and Lightning Bolt all up by 20%. That is absolutely crazy. Like, this might not look like much, but this is going to make me do probably 80 to 100k DPS on single target now. I swear to you, I'm going to be pumping on single target fights. It's really crazy. So all these changes are really, really welcome. I'm happy about this. It would have been nice to see some Elemental Shaman changes. I know there's going to be some people crying about Ellie Shaman, but that's okay. I'm happy with the Resto Shaman changes. Warrior. Arms Warrior. Cleave up by 10%. You have to talent into Cleave, so I'm not really sure if this is even that important because I don't think you take Cleave right now, but we'll see. Dreadnought damage up by 30%. This is when you press Overpower, it does it unleashes a wave of damage in front of you. Very, very good. You're pressing Overpower all the time, and Dreadnought is a talent that you always take, so that's pretty cool. Deep Wounds, that's your Mastery, up by 15%. That's awesome. Very, very, very good. And then the Emirdrasil 4-piece set, they're buffing this. Bonus damage for the triggered Thunderclap increased to 200%. So they literally doubled it. They doubled the damage that your Thunderclap is going to do from the 4-piece bonus. That is, like, really wild to me. It must have been severely underperforming in their eyes. So, very cool to see this as well. Arms Warrior has been doing fine, actually. In a lot of the recent keys that I've been doing, I've been seeing Arms Warriors crop up. They're actually doing fine. But if you look at the representation on something like Radar.io, I think Arms Warrior is the lowest one. So again, it's right next to Prot Warrior, like they're very close. But you can see Arms Warrior again is the least represented of the Warrior specs. So they just want to give them a little bit of love, I guess. But I think they're going to be, like, if you find a good Arms Warrior, they'll be topping the meters. I'm telling you. Like, they're already doing fine. This is going to really push them over the edge, I think, especially with the 4-piece bonus. Prot Warrior. Vanguard now increases your stamina by 40% instead of 35%, so 5% more stamina just for free. And Ignore Pain absorbs more damage. So, honestly, great defensively for Prot Warrior. I think Prot Warrior, it's, like, again, very underrepresented if you think about the tanks. But I think that, like, it's actually secretly very, very, very good. It's just, again, nobody plays it. So, Prot Warrior, you know, there's only 61,000 Prot Warriors. There's, like, 196,000 Prot Paladins. There's 127,000 Blood DKs. There's Brewmaster's probably really bad. Yeah, there's only 50,000 Brewmasters. But Guardian Druids, there are about 80,000 Guardian Druids. Vengeance, there's 241,000. So all the other tanks are much, much more represented, except for maybe Brewmaster. But Prot Warrior is definitely lower on the list there. They're giving them a little bit of love, which is very nice. They're making them much, much tougher. 5% more stamina is great. 5% more damage absorption is great. Remember, Ignore Pain also ignores magic damage, so it's actually very strong. So there you go. I'm not going to get to the PvP changes because I'm not a PvP guy, but this is a pretty great, like, small patch buff. This is always strange how Blizzard does this, but I think the Feral Druid stuff is huge. The Priest stuff is really, really big. Holy and Shadow got massive buffs. Rat Paladin got a massive, massive buff. So we're going to have to see how the representation of these different specs goes up, how much more people start playing these specs. Maybe Holy will get a little bit more in line with Disc Priest. Probably not still, but you'll have to see. And then I think Shadow Priest will definitely be returning to Mythic Plus in a big way. It's going to be doing so much more damage. So that's it for me, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below about the upcoming class tuning changes. I just had to make a video about it because these are absolutely massive to some of these specs. I think it's going to revitalize how some of these specs have kind of fallen through the cracks and are not really played anymore. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did some of your specs get buffed? I would love to hear from you down there. Thank you so much again for watching, guys. I love you all. I will see you in the next one.